Today, I'm going to share the story of a woman who misread love for years within a marriage that looked normal from the outside. I have 62-year-old Diane here with me. Diane said, "I understood love too late and paid a heavy price." What do you mean by that, Ms. Diane?
Even explaining this to someone for the first time makes me feel strange. Because for years I thought that being happy meant keeping quiet. I lived as if I were what you call a good woman. The kind who keeps the house tidy, doesn't bother anyone, doesn't escalate arguments and smiles without causing a fight when she's hurt. People always told me, "You're so patient." But what they thought was patience was me slowly erasing myself. I was 27 when I got married. Some might say that's late, others might say it's early. My husband wasn't a bad man. He was hardworking, liked order, and was devoted to his family. That's exactly why, for years, I silenced myself thinking, what is there to complain about? Even when something hurt me, I remained silent, thinking I shouldn't exaggerate, because that's what I was taught as a child. Love is earned by not causing problems. During the day, I made everyone's work easier, and in the evenings, I continued to play the same role. The table was set, the dishes were done, plans were made for the next day, but no one ever stopped to ask, "How are you today?" I didn't ask either. I thought asking was selfish. After a while, my inner voice became so quiet that even I couldn't hear what I wanted. In those years, for example, on our 20th wedding anniversary, I placed a small candle on the table and sat down. My husband, without putting down his phone, said, "I'm getting up early tomorrow." There was no ill will. It was just habit. I said, "Okay," and blew out the candle. That was my tragedy. I hadn't learned to ask for anything. Since I didn't ask for anything, no one asked me what I wanted. The real pain was that I thought this was love. But love is being able to stand by someone without diminishing yourself. I realized this in my 50s, when I was 52. One morning my heart was pounding like crazy, my hands were freezing. When the doctor at the hospital said, "stress," I asked myself this question for the first time in years. Where am I in this life? In that room, I realized for the first time, love is not about sacrificing yourself. It's about being seen, being asked about, and being understood. If what I'm saying now makes you think, "I'm always managing," please don't dismiss that feeling. Because sometimes everything seems fine, but one day you wake up and say, "I'm lost." In the next video, when you hear why a woman left a seemingly perfect marriage, you will also look at your own silence. In my story, everything started that day when I left the hospital. The moment I closed the car door as I left the hospital, it was as if a window that had been open inside me for years suddenly slammed shut in my face. Even the light that day was different. Sometimes you don't feel like you've come back from death. It's just the question, "Is this how I'm going to live?" that sticks in your throat. I put my hands on the steering wheel and realized my hands were shaking, but it wasn't my body that was shaking. It was the entire balance of my life. When I got home, everything continued as it had been. The sound of the key, the hallway, the kitchen, the same plates placed in the same spot. My husband was watching something on TV. "How are you?" he said, without taking his eyes off the screen. "I'm fine," I said. Again, that word that had been automatically coming out of my mouth for years. But I wasn't fine. I was scared. I felt more alone than ever before. And a tiny voice inside me was saying, "Say it." At dinner, I gathered my courage for a moment. "I was really scared at the hospital today," I said. Even as I formed the sentence, I said it quietly, as if it weren't important. He looked at his plate and asked, "What did the doctor say? Did he give you medicine?" The question wasn't bad. It was logical. But at that moment, I wasn't expecting a logical answer. I was expecting support. A voice saying, "I'm here for you." A face looking into my eyes. A person who would hear my fear. At that moment, something else became clearer to me. We had been living in the same house for years, but we weren't in the same emotional space. I mistook adapting to his routine for love. He mistook my adaptation for everything being fine, because I never said it's not fine. If this gives you goosebumps, maybe you also know that someone's getting by can actually mean disappearing. That night, when we got into bed, there was silence again. I was about to turn my back and close my eyes as usual. Then I stopped. The first thought that crossed my mind was, if I stay silent now, I'll never be able to speak again, and it will continue like this. I slowly sat up and said, "I need to talk to you." I was surprised that I said it. It was a small sentence, but it was a big step for me. He said, "Can't we talk tomorrow? I'm very tired." At that moment, I could have done what I had done for years. I could have said okay and swallowed it. But that day, in the hospital corridor, I had made a promise to myself. I hadn't named it, but I felt it. Tomorrow meant never in our marriage. My throat tightened, but I said it anyway. "No, we'll talk now." My voice trembled as I said no for the first time. A person's limits first echo within themselves. At that moment, I understood. I understood love too late because I had postponed respecting myself first, and the interest on some postponements is paid over years. "We'll talk now," I said, and the look of surprise on her face was the most genuine expression I had seen in years. She wasn't angry. It was more like a piece of furniture that had never changed its place. In the house suddenly started talking. "What are we going to talk about?" she said. "I was very scared," I said. "I was really scared for the first time in the hospital." My voice cracked. She reflexively asked, "What were you scared of in the hospital? What did the doctor say?" I took a deep breath. "I'm tired," I said, "but not from cooking. I'm tired inside. In this house, I've always been the one who does the work. I never said I wanted to be seen as a person, that I wanted to be valued, that I wanted to be noticed." As I said it, my eyes filled with tears, because even when I cried over the years, I always cried inside. "Everyone gets tired, Diane. That's life," he said. That sentence felt like a summary of all the years that had minimized my pain as normal. I could have backed down again to comfort him, but I didn't. "That's not life," I said calmly. "At least not for me." I thought love meant not causing trouble. I thought if I kept quiet, I would be loved more. But the more I kept quiet, the more invisible I became. He paused for a moment and asked, "What do you want?" This question left me speechless, because I didn't know how to answer. For years, I had considered wanting to be selfish. Still, I said, "I want to be seen. I want to be listened to when I'm scared, to hear I understand when I'm hurt. I want to be your partner, not just part of the routine." "Don't I value you?" he asked. His voice was defensive. "You did," I said. "But sometimes valuing isn't the same as loving." I couldn't relax around him. When I express myself, I feel like he thinks I'm exaggerating. My feelings have always been superfluous in this house. His gaze met mine for a moment, then he looked away. With that look, a truth became clear to me. If I changed, our balance would be disrupted. And he liked that balance, because it was a habit. The following days passed with okay instead of shouting. I used to say okay, now he did. I would start a sentence, and he would shut down the topic. One morning while making coffee, he said, "I think you're overthinking it. We have everything. Other people have it worse." I put the cup down on the counter. This time my hand didn't shake. "Yes," I said, "there are worse things. But there are better things too, and I never learned to want the better things. At that moment, I named what had begun outside the hospital. For the first time, I was beginning to understand that love is not about sacrifice. It's about mutual recognition.
So, Diane, what did that moment of fear show you that day? What truth in your marriage had you been denying for years?
For years, I thought being good meant being close. It wasn't about being in the same house, sharing the same life. I turned my existence into service. He got used to it. And habit, after a while, very quietly takes the place of love. After the hospital, I set a small rule for myself. Not a big deal, but a small, irreversible rule. If I feel the need to say something, I will say it. If I want to say it's okay, I will stop and think first. Is it really okay, or am I just staying silent to avoid causing a problem? My first attempt was simple. At dinner, I made his favorite meal, as usual. Then we sat down at the table. He talked about work, looked at his phone, made plans. I could have done what I'd done for years and stayed silent, but I didn't. "Wait a minute," I said. "I felt very lonely today." My husband said, "Honey, I'm right here with you. I'm home." At that moment, I understood the difference between being there and being with. "It's not enough for you to be there," I said. "I want you to care about what's going on inside me. I want connection, not just solutions." My voice trembled again when I said this, but this time I didn't back down. Because for the first time I felt this. If I don't speak up, no one can even misunderstand me. Silence seems safer than being misunderstood, but in the end, it leaves you alone. That night, I did something else. I wrote down the list of little grievances I had accumulated over the years, not in my head, but on a piece of paper. I didn't date it. I didn't write a dramatic letter. I just wrote 3 sentences. My feelings matter. It's not selfish to express my needs. Love is not earned by enduring. The next day, I put that paper in a drawer. I didn't show it to anyone, because this was about me before it was about my husband. It was like a promise I made to myself. At this point, I need to say this. From the outside, everything may seem perfect. The house, the order, the meals, the vacations. People may say, "What a wonderful life." But sometimes a person gets so tired that they get up and leave one day without any big fight. Soon, when you hear why a woman walked out that door, even though everything seemed fine, you might ask yourself, what feeling have I been putting off for years? In my home, the price of those postponed feelings began to be paid slowly. The more we talked, the more she closed herself off. The more I set boundaries, the more she said, "Is this really necessary?" And for the first time, I realized that some people can hurt you not because they are bad, but because they don't know you at all. When I understood this, there was pain. The first was the pain of, why did I stay silent for so many years? The second was sharper, the pain of, he never really knew me all these years. Our conversations became short and exhausting. I would open up about a feeling, and he would immediately try to come up with a solution. Let's go on vacation. Buy something. Go out more. As if the emptiness inside me could be filled with plans. For the first time, I said clearly, I don't need things. I need to be heard. One evening, we were sitting side by side. The TV was on, but we were both somewhere else. "Sometimes I feel lonely even when I'm with you," I said. His face tensed. He closed himself off. "You're not alone. I'm here," he said. At that moment, I saw the difference between being beside you and being with you in all its reality. "You're here," I said, "but you're not with me." That sentence magnified the truth between us. We never had loud arguments, we would just grow cold. One day my mother called. "How are you?" she asked. My tongue was about to say "I'm fine" out of habit. I couldn't. "I don't know," I said. "Isn't everything okay?" she asked. That question which had silenced me for years. "Seems fine," I said, "but I'm not on the right path." As soon as the words left my mouth, I caught myself. I hadn't chosen a path for years. I had just been getting by. So, in my early 50s, especially at 52, I learned to be alone with myself for the first time. I would get up early in the morning and sit in the kitchen, without rushing to do anything. Just drinking my tea and asking myself, what do I want? The first answers were simple. Rest, silence, not having to explain myself to anyone. Then it deepened. Kindness, respect, a face looking into my eyes, feeling that I matter too. As the list grew longer, a fear grew inside me. What if these things would never exist in this house? One night, as I turned off the light, I asked myself, what did I think love was? The answer was frightening. I thought love was giving up. I thought love was giving up my desires, my needs, sometimes even myself. Because when I did that, there were no arguments. The house remained calm, but I wasn't calm. I was exhausted. One day my husband said, "You've changed." Not accusingly, but as if a new rule had been introduced in the house. "You weren't like this before." "Yes," I said, "because before I didn't exist." That sentence frightened him. "I didn't forbid you," he said. "I didn't do anything big." She was right. There was no great betrayal. There was just indifference. Indifference is the hardest thing to describe. There is no proof of it, but it has an effect. It silently diminishes a person. I was learning something in those days. No one may be bad, but still, a person slowly disappears in a place where they don't feel loved. And disappearing doesn't happen all at once. First, a person lowers their voice, then they diminish their desires, then they shelve their dreams, saying, "It's not necessary anyway." Finally, they begin to feel like a guest in their own life. The hardest moments for me were when I realized this but still tried to tell myself, I can manage. Because once you got used to this situation, everyone else did too. One evening, while listening to the sound of the dishwater in the kitchen, a very clear sentence crossed my mind. I am begging for love in this house. Even thinking about it embarrassed me. As a woman in her 50s, in my own home, that embarrassment made me angry for the first time, but the anger wasn't at my husband, it was at myself. Why did I think this was normal? I asked. That night when I got into bed for the first time in years, I didn't turn my back on him. "Will you really talk to me?" I said, without defending yourself, without looking for solutions, just listening. There was a long silence. Then he said, "I don't know how to do that, Diane. That's just how I am." The sentence was simple, but its echo was huge for me. Because at that moment I realized I had been waiting for him to change for years. He, on the other hand, had been counting on my silence for years. Something inside me calmed down. It was the calmness of truth, not hope. "I used to be like that too," I said, "but I'm not anymore." The following week I did something small. I chose a day for myself. I didn't ask for permission or give an explanation. I just said, "I'll be out for a few hours today." My voice didn't tremble. He asked, "Where?" I used to give details to reassure him. This time I just said, "To myself." For the first time, a sentence pulled me together. That day, I sat in a park. I watched people walk by. An elderly couple walked past, holding hands. There was no grand romance, just harmony. When one slowed their pace, the other slowed too. In that moment, the knot inside me untangled. Love isn't about grand words. Love is keeping the same rhythm. It's not carrying someone's burden alone. I understood this at 52, and that's where I paid the real price. I realized I couldn't get back the years I had lost. but I could get myself back.
If you could go back today and say one thing to 30-year-old Diane, what would you say?
Love is not earned by enduring pain. Love doesn't grow by bottling it up. Stop being a good woman. Be a real woman. Say what you want. Say no to what you don't want. Because no order you build by losing yourself will ever be a home for you. I am 62 years old today. I still feel like I'm late sometimes. But I also know this. The moment a person turns back to themselves, time starts anew. If you find a place in my story that represents you, perhaps you too are ready to look at what you have silenced in your own life under the phrase, everything is fine. Because sometimes everyone says everything is fine, but inside they have lost their way. Value yourself and please take what I have said to heart.